What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, and today we have to have a conversation about something that keeps showing up in the comment section of just about every review I've done lately, and that is the word reliability. Honestly, guys, this is the one word that I hate seeing the most because unlike Tinkerbell, it does not get better if you believe in it. Reliability is what you make out of your motorcycle. So let's hit the road and talk about it. Oh boy, here we go. I know what's coming. I absolutely know what's coming, and that is a raging firestorm in the comments. And most likely a spicy like-dislike ratio. It's just, you cannot have a conversation on the internet about stuff anymore, which is difficult, especially when it comes to these, like, kitchen table issues, I guess, if we're going to use a political term. Reliability really is, like, motorcycling's biggest kitchen table issue, aside from, like, expense and stuff. But originally I was going to ride the KTM for this one because so many people like to point to KTM as the poster child of unreliable motorcycles. Whether that's earned or unearned, I think that, you know, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but stuff like with the 890, that's basically in the past now. But the 660 here was also a really, really great example of a reliability scare, right? And as I mount up, we can talk a little bit about it, because this one actually happened in my hometown. Or, well, not hometown, my adopted hometown. I'm from Chicago, not Austin. The first model years of the 660 had I shit you not, it was like 300 affected motors that had bad metallurgy in the connecting rods. And some, not all of them, some failed. And basically what ended up happening is there was a guy on the internet, and I think, I have no way to confirm this, I think what happened is the folks at Aprilia basically went to the guy and they were like, all right, can you please take the video down? I cannot confirm that. I absolutely cannot confirm that, but it has happened in the past. Ducati basically bought a bike back from somebody and told him that he could never talk about his Hypermotard again because he was having so many problems with it. So I absolutely 100% cannot confirm that, but given the fact that I can't find that video on the internet anymore, that seems to be the thing. It's important to note too that when it came to those 660s, it was like 300 of them. Every single one of those motors was replaced at Aprilia's cost, and all of those motors went to the 660 race team. They basically went to go racing, because when you go racing, nobody cares about reliability. That's just not that, like, every motor gets torn apart and put back together after every race. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But one of the things that I do want to point out is that I am slightly skewed when it comes to this conversation, and I will own up to that, because I have a different relationship with my motorcycles than most folks, because this is, at the end of the day, my job. I don't have another job. I make videos for y'all to enjoy on the internet. And a lot of times, my motorcycles become content vehicles. Like this Tuono 660 factory I have because the folks at Aprilia gave me a steep discount on it so that I could be a part of this Aprilia Creator GP, which, by the way, if you're interested in winning some killer prizes, click the link down in the description below. This is not one of those videos, so if you're here looking for codes, guys, there are no hidden codes in this video. The next one that will have hidden codes is me doing the break-in service on this bike, going over some of that procedure and all that, so stay tuned for that. But you don't need to be looking for codes. Just hang out, stay a while, and listen. But maybe you're following the Creator GP at home and you're wondering how you can get some more points so that you can earn some bigger prizes.
Well, one of the best ways you can do that is by supporting the brands who are supporting the series. And one of those brands is Breakfree. They make this brake light right here for your helmet, which is designed so that the second you roll off the throttle, not even grab the brakes, this thing will light up, showing everybody behind you that you're getting on the brakes. The reason why I like this piece of kit is because sometimes a car driver may not see your brake light. It's either below their field of vision, or they're in a gigantic truck that has one of those stupid grills that's 18 feet tall. They're always gonna see your helmet. I've even started wearing this in the dirt because some dirt bikes do not have brake lights, or the brake light on my DRZ gets completely covered up in mud, and this will tell people behind me, hey, I'm slowing down. Again, please don't pancake me. They could probably call this the don't pancake me light. If you want to grab one of these, all you got to do is click the link down in the description below and use the code SPITE for $10 off, or you could go to the Aprilia Creator GP website where you can find a secret code that will get you more points and allow you to earn some bigger prizes in the Creator GP. That link is also down below.
But if my motorcycles are in large part content vehicles, I can write off everything that goes into them, right? Every oil change is a business expense. Every tire change is a business expense. Paying for labor is business expense. So while I do most of the work on my motorcycles and it does come out of my pocket, I do get to write it off at the end of the year. So I'm very, very anal about my service on these bikes. I try to keep them in tip-top shape, and I pay through the nose to keep them in tip-top shape because I can write it all off, and most of it goes into videos. It's something everybody can do, so I understand if somebody's like, oh, well, your point is invalid because of that. Totally get it. Now, with that out of the way, we have to talk about this because so many people online use reliability as both a sword and a shield in their debates on Reddit or in the comment section. Go look at any video I've ever done on a KTM, and the word reliability will always be the stake through a vampire's heart that kills KTM in the mind of the commenter. And most guys who own a KTM are like, yeah, first time. Because, you know, nobody who's bought a KTM has had a truly flawless experience. And then if you look at reviews on like a Japanese motorcycle where I may have not been as thrilled with it, they're like, yeah, but at least it's more reliable. So there's reliability as a shield and as a sword, right? And here's where we got to talk a little bit about like design intent, right? Because that impacts the lifespan of a motorcycle. What does it say on every KTM when you turn it on? It says ready to race. What does it say when you turn on this Aprilia? Be a racer. Bikes that are designed, and parts even, that are designed to go racing have a lifespan. Think about it like this. An exhaust. You buy an SC Project. You buy the like normal one that you get from Revzilla that's just like any old exhaust, right? It's built different than an exhaust that is designed to go racing. A racing exhaust, if you were to hold one in your hands, if you were to hold a racing exhaust in your hands and then you saw the price, you would be like, oh my God, this is outrageous. Why am I paying so much money for this? Because racing parts, they may make it 10 they may make it 10 races, maybe, before a racing exhaust explodes. Because they're just put to such different use than stuff on the street, right? The same goes for motors. Again, there's a reason why Aprilia just gave those 300 motors to the race team, and they're like, just like, have fun. Go explode these things. Because they were never going to put them back into service. They were never going to put a motor that had been recalled back into service on the street. They were just going to give it to somebody who doesn't care about the longevity of the motor because they tear it apart and put it back together and replace parts all the time. And so when you look at KTM and you're like, oh, well, those bikes are questionably reliable, I mean, that is a bike that is trying to push as much power as humanly possible in as race-ready a bike as they could make, right? One of the nice things about buying a KTM Dual Sport or a dirt bike is you don't have to screw with it too much to make it ready to rock and roll. You just roll it out of the factory, like their Supermotos specifically. You roll one of their like 16.5-inch front end Supermotos out, and that thing is ready to absolutely rip up a racetrack now. No mods required. But you don't hear those guys complaining about the reliability of the motor. The only people who care about reliability are we mortals, right? And so that's where we have to just realize that if you're gonna buy a product that says ready to race or be a racer or whatever, perhaps it will not last as long as something that like a Goldwing, which just is designed to go and go and go and go because it's a Civic motor, basically. Use case has a lot of impact on the lifespan of a vehicle and the parts on that vehicle. So if you're selecting race parts to put on your street bike and you're complaining about the longevity of that, I mean, you're using something that's designed to be bought, thrown away, and replaced. But when it comes to motorcycles, I understand why people want to have the most reliable thing out there. And they want a motorcycle company to really care about making their bike as reliable as humanly possible. And here's where we have to go back to KTM, because I have had 3 separate KTMs in my life. I have had an smc-r 690, I have had an Enduro R, and I now have the Super Duke. And none of those bikes have truly had what I would consider a reliability issue. Now, I know a bunch of people are going to be like, well, what about the Enduro R? You had that overheating problem. You're right, I did. That overheating problem is not because the bike was built wrong or the bike had some inherent flaws in it. I mean, it does, kind of, but not the kind that caused it to overheat. The overheating was a result of a couple of factors. First of all, the radiator has too much stuff behind it. You have to get rid of the SAS can, and you have to get rid of the airbox for it to really flow enough air when you're going like dirt bike speeds, especially in like slower, more technical stuff. If you're crawling over things, it's not going to be as efficient at moving air with all that crap behind it, and that's why it was overheating. There was also the closed loop issue, which closed loop is an emissions requirement. So it was not something that the bike could really control for. I had to throw a little bit of cash at it to cause that to go away. I chose not to, and that's why I have the Duke now. And the Duke, I have seen guys put insane miles on LC8s. I've also seen guys say that their LC8 exploded. But it's really hard to look at 2 different motorcycles that were ridden in 2 completely different styles and say that the one that got a gazillion miles was somehow better built than the one that didn't. Because it's going to come down to how it was used, right? Give you an example. So my CBR 600 F4i, which I still have, that bike is 20 years old. It's got 50 some odd thousand miles on it, which is pretty good for a 600. That bike still works great. But I had to replace the clutch in it because the clutch was acting funny, and I had to, and it still has an issue where the neutral sensor is starting to fail. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's this 2-wire sensor that sits inside the clutch case. And that sensor basically is what tells the bike it's neutral, and when the bike revs up now, it somehow loses its connection to everything, and it freaks out, and it doesn't work anymore. And so the bike will just stop running. It'll just be like, no, I'm done. If you put the kickstand down, even if you're in neutral, because the bike thinks it's not in neutral. Is that a reliability problem? No, that's just a part reaching the end of its service life. Some bikes have much longer service lives for things, like Ducati. On the Desmo bikes, the belts need to be replaced every 7,500 miles. That's the end of their service life. Is that less reliable? Not in my opinion, because if you service the motor, it's going to keep on puttering away. And that's really, really what I wanted to get down to with this video. I really wanted to stress to all of those folks out there who are saying no to bikes because they heard on the internet that it's unreliable, that, like I said at the top, it ain't like Tinkerbell. Your reliability on a motorcycle does not improve because you believe it's more reliable. If you want any motorcycle to be reliable, what you need to do is you need to service that motorcycle. Why don't race motors blow up every weekend? Because every weekend they tear the motor apart and they put it back together and they service every part. We don't push our bikes that hard, so we don't have to do it every weekend. But you should at least be looking over your bike every 600 miles, checking the oil, making sure that the chain is tight, making sure that your brakes are good, making sure that your brake fluid is the number one thing that I've seen skipped on bikes. Brake fluid, making sure that you've got coolant in the bike, making sure all this stuff is right. Because if you haven't checked your oil in 4,000 miles, and you're like, I'm coming up on my 5,000 mile oil change, and you've been running it low on oil for, I don't know, 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles, just because you haven't looked, that is going to cause way more damage to your motorcycle than going to a track day. Running a motor low on oil is the number one way to kill it sooner. If you want to reduce your motorcycle's lifespan, don't check the oil. And like I said, I get to be anal about it because everything's a business expense, but I change my oil on every one of my motorcycles at 3,000 miles. Even less if I know that it carries less than like 2 quarts of oil. So if it's a single cylinder, I usually check it every time I ride it. And then if it's even remotely off, like if it's down on the dipstick, I just drop the oil, because you don't have the luxury of extra oil in the tank. And it's also worth pointing out too that if you want to do a good oil change, or a good oil check rather, don't just let it sit in your driveway and idle. Actually, the best way to check the oil on this bike right now would be for me to turn it off, put the kickstand down, while we wait for this next guy, let the motor cool just a little bit, let the oil settle just a little bit, and then come over here to this cap, undo it, wipe it off on my pant leg because that's all I got. And then dip it. Yeah, we're good. That's how you do a proper oil check, at least on most modern motorcycles. You want it to, you want the motor to be hot. You want the oil to be well circulated. So don't just let it sit at the end of the driveway. Give it some time. Let it heat up. Let it cool down. If you want to do it really right, the way that I would suggest, more so than just waiting for the guy behind you, is to go to a gas station. And usually by the time you're done filling up and taking a drink of water, then it's time to check your oil. And if you're buying your motorcycle new, a great way to ensure the longevity of the bike is to break it in by the book. Usually I keep it to the book for the first 300 miles of a break-in, or the first 50%. And then I start loosening the rules and regulations every 100 miles. So like first 300, is exactly by the book. And then my second 100, or my second 100 miles, if it's 600, after 300, so 4 to 500, or no, 300 to 400 would be 65 to 75%. Then 400 to 500 is about up to 90%. And then no limits for the last 100 miles. Because once the motor loosens up and it goes through a handful of heat cycles, you basically just want to teach it all the different RPM bands, right? So I just start wailing on a motorcycle harder and harder and harder. Like right now, we're at I have 198 miles left, so now I can go all the way up to 90% on this bike, according to my rules. I'm sure the book would say don't do that, but I've never had a problem breaking in motorcycles like this. I've broken in everything from little baby V-twins, parallel twins, to big-ass hyper nakeds, and they've all worked great. But that's where I'm going to pass it off to you guys. What do you make of all of this conversation around reliability on the internet? Do you think it's overblown? Do you think it matters? Do you care that much about reliability that you will not buy certain brands because you've heard on the internet that they're not good? I know so many people said that about CF Moto, and CF Moto, we have one in the garage, and it still keeps on ticking. It's going strong. So yeah, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think. And yeah, please try to keep this one civil. I know there's going to be so much rage and indignation down there, but if you're here at the end, just, let me know what your favorite way of calming down is when you read something that you don't like on the internet. What do you go out and do you like smash a plate, or do like a mag dump into a hay bale or something? Let me know your thoughts. How do you unstress after you hear something annoying on the internet, which I'm sure you do all the time after my videos. Oh man, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.